What's up, everyone? I'm Max, and I'm here with Tanner.
Heyo.
And welcome to, episode 2.
Episode 2.
Damn,
Yeah.
we're going places, man.
Second episode.
Episode 2 of The Rabbit Hole.
And it didn't even take us that long.
No, it didn't. I don't think it took us more than 3 weeks.
Well, we were trying, to be fair. We were like, our plan was to wait for them to like upload onto, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yeah.
And then it just took a lot longer than we thought it was going to.
It was supposed to take a couple days, and then ended up taking... Apple took like a week.
Apple was like a week.
And then Spotify was like 2...
That was our fault, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we messed that up.
Yep. But hey, we're back.
Yep.
And speaking of which, Spotify is coming soon. We are on Apple Podcasts.
I think, is Spotify up fully now?
Yeah, actually. No, I take that back. Spotify's up.
Spotify's up. Apple Podcasts is also up. So they're up on both. So all you people that were complaining because you were second-rate citizens using Spotify.
Okay, you know what? Hold your horses. Rein it in, Tanner. Let's not get combative here.
That's fair. All right.
Anyway.
Point is, we're on both.
We're on both. And we have the link in our Instagram to both as well. So if you want an easy place to find it, follow us on Instagram and look up the podcast while you're there. So yeah, let's get into it. Today's topic, we're going over the kind of the questionable death of Adolf Hitler and why some people might think he's actually just chilling in Argentina.
Well, probably not anymore.
Well, yeah, but
extremely questionable death.
Yeah.
Though.
So there's a little outline of how we're going to do that. There's a lot of accepted events that went on around it. So I think I'm going to overview a lot of those and kind of go through the accepted events, and then after that we'll go through some more questionable parts of that and some theories that some people might have.
Some of the like sketchy like events and or like testimonies that came out that really don't lend themselves to the accepted story necessarily.
Yeah.
And kind of make you question a lot of what, if you want to say history says you should believe.
Yep. So it's kind of long, so we'll just jump into it. So kind of the leading up to it, there's really the first 2 weeks before he died that are really important. So that was on April 30th, but by early 1945, the Nazis were definitely in trouble. Germany was like pretty much entirely surrounded by the Soviets to the east and then the Allies to the west. So in January, he retreated into his Berlin bunker, I think the Führer bunker. And German's just funny.
It's a great name.
And it was really only seen outside of that a handful of times over the next 4 months. Fast forwarding up to April, in the 2 weeks leading up to his death, things got escalated very fast. So it really starts on April 18th, where 325,000 German soldiers defending the capital were surrounded and captured, leaving a huge hole in the line that the Allies just walked through. Isn't that your birthday?
That is my birthday.
Oh.
So you could say I played a role in that. I wasn't born yet, but...
But you had a role. Okay.
But I had a role.
I'm not going to argue.
Yeah. I'm taking credit for that one.
Okay. So like I said, the Allies just walked through. So fast forward 2 days to April 20th, where the Soviets began bombarding the city with artillery. And on April 21st, Red Army tanks showed up to Berlin. So the next day, April 22nd, Hitler had a total breakdown where when he found out that the SS, his favorite child, had not been obeying counterattack orders, and they've just been retreating constantly. So that night, apparently, he consulted with an SS doctor about the best way to kill himself, to which the doc responded, a method of simultaneous poisoning and a gunshot to the head. I mean,
that'll do it.
that will do it.
He's not wrong. I like how he had to go to a doctor to ask that, though.
Yeah. I don't even...
Can you imagine the look on his face when the doctor told him that? He's like, okay, well, that wasn't very helpful information. Obviously, shooting myself and also poisoning myself is gonna do it.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyways.
Right after that, so the Luftwaffe chief, Hermann Göring, who was kind of in the room, it sounds like, requested to take over leadership to Hitler. And apparently they talked about that back in 1941. Göring was named as Hitler's successor.
Which is surprising.
Yeah.
Because Hitler doesn't strike you as the kind of guy that would name a successor like before he's on his deathbed.
No. And it wasn't even like it was a vice president position or anything.
Yeah,
it was just...
You're next.
Yeah. Even though they talked about it back in 1941, Hitler took that as a threat of a coup and threatened to have Göring executed if he didn't resign from all of his posts.
Much more on brand.
Yeah. You know what? Being a dictator changes you.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, 1941, he just started out. Well, not really, but much more new.
So 5 short days later, on April 27th, Berlin was completely surrounded. On April 28th, Hitler heard from the BBC and Reuters that an SS commander, Heinrich Himmler, had offered to surrender, which, he took as treason, of course. What struck me though is he found out from the BBC and Reuters.
Yeah, like not even his own command chain.
Which are 2 British news organizations.
To be fair, Himmler probably reported directly to Hitler, I would assume. So if he didn't tell him, then no one else was going to have the guts to tell him.
Right. So since Himmler wasn't at the capital to be executed on the spot, Hitler instead had his representative at the headquarters shot.
Definition of killing the messenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The literal
Dude
messenger.
didn't do anything.
The next day, April 29th, and this is where kind of his death starts to come into play. April 29th, he had his own little red wedding in his bunker and married Eva Braun and finalized his will. This was also when he heard that Benito Mussolini had been killed and strung up in the streets and everything. And at some point overnight, going into April 30th, his headquarters was totally surrounded. So the general in charge of headquarters defense, Helmuth Wiedling, asserted
Good
that...
pronunciation.
Oh, thank you. I've been practicing my German for the last, 12 hours.
12 hours or so, yeah.
Yeah. He asserted that they would be overrun within the day. And Hitler responded by borrowing some cyanide from his friendly neighborhood doctor, and apparently was intent on killing himself once the Soviets actually got to the bunker. In the early morning of April 30th, they were totally surrounded, and the Soviets were less than 500 meters away from the Führer bunker. Late in the morning, probably around 11 a.m., Hitler met again with General Wiedling, who told him the garrison wouldn't survive the night with ammunition. They would run out at some point in the next 24 hours. Later, around 1 p.m., Hitler and Braun said goodbye to the roughly 20-ish people in the bunker, and he and Braun, to whom he was now married,
Ava Hitler, but
yeah,
no one's gonna. No, we're gonna just keep referring to her as Braun.
So they were now married, and they retired to his personal study around 2:30. So fast forwarding approximately 1 hour, witnesses reported hearing a gunshot, and that was around 3:30. After waiting a few minutes,
for some reason,
Hitler's valet opened the door. We'll just give it a minute.
Give him a minute.
Yeah, maybe it's just
feels whatever. Like they were if he's somehow survived the gunshot, we don't want to deal with that, so let's just give him a few minutes, let him bleed out, and then we don't have to deal with it anymore.
So Hitler's valet opened the door a few minutes later. He reported immediately noticing the smell of burnt almonds, which is apparently associated with hydrogen cyanide, and then saw the dead Mr. and Mrs. Hitler on the couch.
Quick question. Would you know what burnt almonds smell like?
No.
I don't think I do.
I also don't know what hydrogen cyanide smells like.
Apparently burnt almonds, but my point is if I walked in the room, I wouldn't report smelling of burnt almonds, because what is that?
I don't know, does it smell like walnuts?
Dude, I don't know.
I make hazelnut coffee in the morning, does it smell like that?
To be fair though, the only thing I would guess is cyanide was kind of common in the Nazi party for a way out. So maybe it's true. Something they were just kind of aware of how it smelled.
They were big chemistry fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently it was just a well-versed fact.
I guess so.
In the Nazi party. There they were lying down on the couch. He also noted with the 2 other Nazi officers in the room that Hitler had a bullet hole in his head and a pool of blood around his feet, which frankly shows a barbaric disregard for the carpet.
I mean, you gotta assume it was a nice carpet.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
his bunker. So
super nice.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah. So apparently Ava had only ingested the cyanide, which comes into play later.
Also, that'll do it. That'll kill you.
Yeah.
The fact that this makes me think that in Hitler's head, he thought he could survive the cyanide.
Well, according to multiple accounts too, before that happened, he tested a cyanide capsule on his dog, and the dog just died right away.
Well, yeah, because it's cyanide. This isn't news, so I just love that he felt the need to do the double whammy.
Yeah. And later was mentioned as well by the 2 officers that were in the room, as well as Hitler's valet, that Hitler and Braun were the only people that had access to that study. So following that, apparently Hitler had pretty definitive instructions about what was to be done with the body afterwards, because everyone promptly got to work. Around 4 p.m., so less than half an hour after the bodies were discovered, the 2 bodies were brought upstairs to the Chancellery garden and burned, along with the blood-stained rug. And then approximately...
They burned the rug.
And then approximately 2 hours later, the bodies were buried in a bomb crater right outside the door. If you look at a picture, it was literally like 30 feet outside the door because they wouldn't leave. They were too scared.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. If the Soviets are like that close, though, too.
Yeah.
How far are you going to go?
So they took the bodies right outside the door, like a couple feet, burned them, and then like huddled inside and just kind of watched.
Yeah. They probably just like tossed it from the door.
So then that was kind of a wrap on like the widely accepted thing. 2 days later, on May 1st, the Germans broadcasted on the radio that Hitler died a hero defending the bunker, which is LOL.
Didn't happen.
No.
No matter what, like whatever conspiracy you believe or don't, he did not die defending the bunker.
No.
He was kind of a wimp.
Yeah, I mean, to their credit, though, it was kind of a propaganda move because... Well, yeah. And it did work because the Germans kept fighting for another week until the 8th.
Yeah. If you wanted more fighting to come,
Yeah.
like, you couldn't just say, like, he went into his bunker and killed himself.
Right. So then the story goes on to say that this is largely from the Russians because they were the ones who actually stormed the city.
Found his body.
Yeah, the Russians made it to Berlin first. So the official story goes that the Russians on May 4th, a couple days later, Hitler's body was finally recovered by a Smersh team, a KGB detachment specifically for the war. Yeah. I tried to figure out... So Smersh is an acronym. It's in all caps.
Yeah, but it's a Russian acronym.
Yeah, it's in Russian. So I tried to figure out what it
help.
said. But as it turns out, my Russian isn't great.
Not great.
No.
That's probably good.
Yeah.
Steady sketch.
Yeah, it would. So it was recovered by a Smersh team. And Stalin was apparently super wary that Hitler wasn't actually dead. So he restricted the release of a lot of information about that. The body was kind of recovered and then, like, immediately shipped off.
Yeah.
So on May 11th, a dentist identified a jaw fragment as Hitler's because his jaw was mostly
metal,
or his teeth were mostly metal at that point, and then there was really a large amount of metal.
Part of his jaw was also metal, which is weird.
Yeah, I guess the Nazis had a lot, but they didn't have toothbrushes.
Yeah.
Can you imagine building a rocket and not knowing how to brush your teeth?
I'm just like, the teeth makes a little bit of sense. Like, that's just can happen, but the jaw being partially metal is just kind of confusing.
Yeah.
We didn't really look into that, so maybe there's like a pretty reasonable explanation.
I wonder if it was like from World War One.
Could be.
Because I know he fought in that.
He was in that. Yeah. I don't know.
So anyway, a dentist identified the jaw fragments as Hitler's. So in the first couple of days of June 1945, the bodies of Hitler and several others were moved to Finau, where the SS guard who buried Hitler identified the remains. The bodies were then reburied in Brandenburg June 3rd, and later moved again to Magdeburg the next year on February 21st, 1946. In 1970, so they were in Magdeburg for quite a while. In 1970, the area was scheduled to be relinquished to East Germany, so the bodies were exhumed again, and this time thoroughly burned and crushed, before being thrown into the nearby Buderitz River. And the justification for that on behalf of the Russians was that they were worried that the site would become a Nazi shrine.
Yeah,
like a neo-Nazi shrine.
Yeah, they were kind of concerned that like it would end up being frequented by people who kind of still like sympathize with the Nazis.
Yeah.
Which, not a good thing.
Yeah, so really the official story ends February 1st. Or, no, I'm sorry, that was 1946. It ends 1970 when the bodies were officially destroyed.
Yeah. And that, yeah, like as you said, that was like kind of what the Russians said, because we made it to Berlin, like the Allies made it to Berlin, but the Russians were there first.
Yeah.
They got the body and they kind of like took it back, so the Allies weren't really involved with that part of it as far as like finding the body and confirming it was him.
Yeah. I love how I've just referred to the Allies and the Soviets as two different people.
Well, I mean, they were.
Yeah.
Let's be real. I keep saying Russians. They weren't Russians. They were Soviets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all know what we mean.
Yeah, two different things.
Yep.
They are two different things, so it is kind of important. Go on to the next part?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us where the stories break down.
Yeah. So here we're gonna move into more is the like why conspiracies exist at all. So the ongoing speculation about Hitler's death stems from two like big issues. One is that the evidence of Hitler's death in the bunker isn't conclusive at all. There's zero photographic evidence, which is wild.
It's kind of weird to me. Like, I feel like...
Yeah.
Well, so DNA evidence wasn't really a thing yet.
Yeah.
So what were criminal investigations like? Did they just take everyone's word for it?
A hunch.
I gotta believe...
It sounds like from part of the story, they fully just went on like eyewitness testimony.
Yeah. Well, I gotta believe that standard practice in most developed countries is to take a lot of pictures of the crime scene.
And you would have thought... Maybe the Russians didn't take pictures. I don't know if that's probably like an out of respect thing. But the Soviets would have. I mean, some people don't. I feel like a lot of people taking pictures of a dead body isn't exactly...
In that scenario, though?
But for the Germans. For the Soviets, they should have definitely taken pictures.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying for the Germans.
Oh,
like the fact
I
that
see.
they
Okay.
didn't doesn't surprise me that much.
Okay, sure.
But the fact that the Soviets took, at least not that we've seen, I guess, took no pictures is like pretty shocking.
It lends itself too easily to like,
yeah, it really
he said,
does.
she said.
Very much. Which is a lot of what this will, like, as you'll see, this becomes more, who do you believe more?
Yeah,
essentially is what this becomes. And then, so the other big reason that there's so many, like, conspiracies or people that don't believe he's dead is because there is an abundance of people who alleged that they've seen him after his supposed death. Yeah. And a lot of those have come from Argentina, where many Nazis fled to.
Yeah, there were even a couple like Nazi officers who claimed to have seen him too.
Yeah. So those are kind of two like big reasons. The fact there's just no real evidence.
Yeah.
And the fact there's so many people that have said they've seen him in a place that a lot of Nazis went to. So it's not super far-fetched of an idea as that where he would be.
Right.
So getting into it, Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov, if that's how you say his first name. It doesn't sound that Soviet to me, but...
You know what? Full send.
But the last name, Zhukov, we're good there. He was the first to present the idea to the public that Hitler and his wife Eva had escaped instead of committing suicide.
Ooh, do you know when that was?
It was in 1945.
So was that like straight after?
I don't know if it was immediately after,
Okay.
But I think kind of the way it went down is he said that they did find him, and then Stalin was like, nah, because Stalin, like you said, was like very wary to believe it. And then he like immediately doubled back and then like presented like, hey, we don't know if he's dead or not. So he presented this information under the direction, like directly from Stalin. Stalin was like,
okay.
Yeah, Stalin was like, don't tell anybody that you found him because we don't actually like know for sure. Or basically he was like, I'm very like skeptical.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it was directly from him.
So the first kind of insinuation that Hitler might have escaped was directly from the people who allegedly recovered his body.
Yeah.
That's okay.
From a marshal in the Soviet army.
So complete 180.
Yeah. And then, so Stalin was asked about the death of Hitler in July of 1945, and his reply was to say that Hitler was living, quote, in Spain or Argentina. And at the time, Spain had a dictator who, I don't think he was technically an Axis power.
Yeah, so he
was like a sympathizer, essentially.
Yeah, he wasn't technically involved in the war, but he was definitely a sympathizer with the Germans. And he even offered... He supported anybody in Spain who would go fight against the Allies with this single caveat that it was only against the Russians.
Soviets, yeah.
Yeah, Soviets, sorry.
I'm like doing my best. Yeah. So the idea that if he was to escape, Spain could have been a pit stop isn't very wild to me because it's close, a lot closer than Argentina.
Right, and no one's going to be flagging flights out of Spain, whereas anywhere else.
Or even if he just chilled for a little bit, because they weren't technically part of the war, so we didn't go there. Like no one went there to try to find him.
Yeah, we started in France and moved our way north.
So yeah, that's what Stalin said is a possibility. Stalin was also just like pretty skeptic. That same month, in July of 1945, newspapers in Britain reported comments from a Soviet officer who said that there was a charred body found by the Soviets in Berlin, and that this body was a very poor double. His exact words was a very poor double.
You know what? I'm just going to come out and say it. Kind of suspicious.
Little bit suspicious. Yeah. People knew what Hitler looked like.
Yeah.
And although charred, he was a recognizable person if there was anything left. If it was fully burnt, then he wouldn't have said it was a very poor double because he had no way of knowing. Yeah. So he had some recognizable features.
Okay, so even from the Nazi Party, in some capacity, there was some suspicion. And then this guy was testifying that it was a poor double.
Yeah. So that was printed in some British newspapers. And then around the same time, in some American newspapers, a quote was printed from the Soviet garrison commandant in Berlin, who said that Hitler had gone into hiding somewhere in Europe. So kind of the same idea as Stalin, thinking somewhere in Europe, meaning probably Spain at that point. Definitely not Italy.
I wonder, were Sweden and Finland involved at all?
Honestly?
Like, north?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I think Denmark was kind of... I don't know.
I'm really not totally sure. But yeah, basically, again, an officer of some sort in the Soviet army said that he was pretty sure that Hitler had gone into hiding in Europe. So all of these quotes from the Soviet soldiers contradict the accepted story that Hitler killed himself on April 30th, 1945. Pretty much directly contradict, along with Stalin himself. So then the first in-depth investigation by the Allied powers started in November of 1945. A man by the name of Dick White, who was at the time... Nice. What a name. At the time, he was the head of British counterintelligence. He appointed Agent Hugh Trevor Roper to lead the investigation in an attempt to counter the claims made by the Soviets. Roper's 1946 report said that Hitler and Braun had committed suicide in Berlin. However, most of his conclusions were based on eyewitness accounts from Hitler's guards and staff, who were all Nazis. So the reliability of their statements is, let's just say, questionable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They would have motive, if he did escape, to lie.
What gets me about like the suspicion on that front though is the motivation to kind of like preserve the Nazi pride and be like, no, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Like Hitler died honorably, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's odd, and again, like we've kind of alluded to before, that report was essentially fully based off eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
Who were all in the bunker, so they were all part of the Nazi party. So it's pretty like up in the air as to what their motivations could have been. Whether to lie or tell the truth, if he was dead, saying he was dead. I don't know. Yeah, because also, like you said, the fact that they said that he killed himself in the bunker, like, which is kind of contradicting their claim of him dying as a hero, like fighting, defending the bunker. That's kind of sketch. And then on May 30th, 1946, while the Soviets were investigating Hitler's potential survival, 2 skull fragments were discovered in the crater where Hitler was supposedly buried. The left piece of the skull had gunshot damage and was kept in Russia's Federal Archives in Moscow. This skull fragment was believed to be proof that Hitler had indeed died in Berlin in 1945, until a DNA test was performed on the skull in 2009 at the University of Connecticut by an archaeologist who, I guess, specialized in bones, essentially.
Yeah. And what kind of stood out to me there is the first time I read that, I thought, oh, well, maybe it was just Ava Braun. But like I said earlier, she hadn't shot herself. She only
we're gonna get
poisoned
to that.
herself. Oh, you're going to get to that?
Yeah, you're going to get
to that.
Okay,
I got it.
So, so after the DNA test was performed, the skull was found to be from a woman aged under 40, which meant essentially that all those years that people just assumed this skull fragment was part of the proof that Hitler died just wasn't true. And as Max just said, could have been Ava Braun. She was a woman aged under 40. However, the accepted story was that she didn't shoot herself. She only took cyanide, so there's no reason she would have a bullet hole in her head. So basically, these were just skull fragments, very possibly just from a civilian that got caught in the bombing.
Yeah, literally anything.
Definitely not Hitler. Also, 98% probably not Ava Braun, because the accepted story said she only took cyanide.
Yeah.
The caveat to this a little bit is that former Soviet and Russian officials actually never claimed that the skull fragment was the main piece of evidence that Hitler was dead. It was part of it until they found out it wasn't him, but it wasn't the main piece. Instead, they had jawbone fragments and 2 dental bridges that had been found in May 1945. So yeah, if you didn't catch it earlier, most of Hitler's teeth and part of his jaw were metal.
Yeah.
So like theoretically pretty identifiable.
I think he only had like 4 actual teeth.
Yeah, by like April 1945.
Very badly decayed.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Maybe that's why he was so angry. His jaw just always hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that would do it. Thinking about it, that'd be pretty annoying.
I would not be a happy camper.
So these fragments were shown to Hitler's dentist Hugo Blosch, who was also the chief dentist for the SS, including Heinrich Himmler. Blosch's dental technician Fritz Echtmann, and his assistant, Cathay Huiserman. I do not know any German. Just pointing that out.
Effort.
Pointing that out, don't know German. So all three of them confirmed the dental records the dental remains to be those of Hitler and Braun. However, one thing to remember in this situation is that all three of these people were part of the Nazi Party and served some very high-up individuals, being Hitler and Himmler, who were two of the highest serving. The SS also being, like you said, Hitler's kind of favorite little pet project.
Yeah.
And also all massive pieces of shit.
Oh, yeah. 50 Shades of fucked
They
up.
were terrible fucking people. So, you gotta kind of, them confirming it.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Take it with a grain of salt. Also, this is just kind of my thought. If the plan was to burn a double of Hitler for him to then escape, they would be aware that the only real thing they could use is dental records.
Yep.
Meaning the dental team would have been brought in and been informed. So that kind of rings a little bell in my head that, like, if this was a plan, then they would have prepared for it, essentially.
Yeah.
So apparently, this is one thing that really got to me. All three of them were able to draw Hitler's dental records from memory.
Even, like, his dental assistant.
Yeah, the assistant to his dentist.
Yeah.
Was able to draw his records from memory. So that, like, very much to me seems odd that a dentist could draw it from memory, all three of them.
Yep.
They looked the exact same. That's why in my head I was like, okay, so they planned for this.
Yeah.
Because that means they knew they were going to be asked to do it.
Right.
Because I think the idea was that they were asked to draw it before they were shown the fragments or something like that. I don't know. Something in this. They were asked to draw it before, like, they could, like, talk to each other, I guess.
Right.
And they compared all three of them, and they were the same. But again, if you're going to plan an escape, like, let's be honest, they were terrible people, but they were smart. The Germans were smart.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have been dumb about it. If they were like, okay, we're going to burn a body, what's the first thing they're going to do? Oh, there's going to be dental records. Mm-hmm. Let's talk to the dentists, who seem to be, pretty loyal to the Nazi Party.
Seems reasonable.
So yeah, that's just kind of like where my mind went on that one. So yeah, apparently they were able to draw the records from memory. And then in 2017, a French forensic pathologist by the name of Philippe Charlier.
Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Do you speak French?
I do not speak French.
Man,
you'd think I did.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
A for effort.
So this Charlier guy stated that the teeth on one of the bone fragments were in perfect agreement with an X-ray taken of Hitler in 1944. Those X-rays being taken by Hugo Blasch, the Nazi Party dentist, essentially. So still kind of grain of salt. Also, I don't know for sure, but were X-rays in 1944 good enough that they could perfectly match anything? I don't know.
I couldn't tell
but
you.
that just kind of jumped out at me, like an X-ray in 1944. How good were they? I don't fully know. Either way, X-rays came from Nazi guy. Everything from Nazi, I kind of take slightly with a grain of salt. That's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah, so a lot of the confirmation that he died, you really get hung up on the fact that they're all Nazis.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah, because
they'd have motivation to lie, first
Right.
off. I mean, with both, like that 1946 report was just purely based on eyewitnesses.
True.
And this is all based on Nazi dentists saying
Yep.
that it's him. Whatever side you want to take on that. I mean, they are dentists, so, I think most medical professionals kind of like take an oath to be pretty professional. But again, in World War II, in the Nazi Party, it was a little bit different. They didn't exactly follow, like, norms, if that's what you want to say. Outside of the jawbone thing, one notable testimony is from a Luftwaffe captain by the name of Peter Baumgart. So while on trial for war crimes in Poland in 1947, Baumgart claimed to have flown Hitler and Braun to Denmark on April 28, 1945, stopping off in Magdeburg overnight due to Allied bombing. So other Luftwaffe pilots have said that this can't be possible, because at that time, I think it was like something like 10 days earlier, the Americans had taken over Magdeburg and were still there.
Sure.
But then you gotta think, if Baumgart was lying about this, he would have known that Magdeburg was occupied.
Yeah.
As a Luftwaffe captain, he would have known that Magdeburg was occupied by the Americans. So
Definitely.
why would he choose that place?
Yeah, I actually also, when you were telling me about this earlier, I also really got hung up on that because, I mean, I'm not to like toot my own horn, but pilots usually in the realm of aviation know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like when you take off somewhere, you have multiple airports you can land at, and that's all thought out. So that seems like such a huge oversight.
Yeah.
If that's his main testimony.
And the German Air Force was good, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they were the best Air Force in the war.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to jet engines.
So the fact that, he was a captain in the Luftwaffe isn't, like, taken lightly.
Right.
So, yeah, he would have known. He would have been aware of the occupied areas. So, again, if he was lying, why pick there? So, like, yeah, maybe he had a safe place to land and not be noticed.
Yeah.
You don't really know. Basically, according to his testimony, Hitler ended up in Denmark from that flight. Who knows from there? Denmark's got water around it. He could have gotten in a U-boat.
Yeah. Well, also, like, think about when you're storming a new country like that. The Americans were trying to cover so much area. Even when you have an occupied city, is it that densely occupied?
Well, and also
where you can't notice like a plane landing.
I also assume at the time there was a lot of planes in the air.
Yeah.
So
I would assume so.
Like, would you really? Yeah. If it landed like a little bit outside, like would someone have noticed?
The Americans were like airdropping supplies. There were transport planes going over.
There's bombing going on the whole time.
Fighters, yeah. So I would assume that there's constantly aircraft in the air.
So my guess, I mean, I'm not saying they wouldn't notice for sure, but it's definitely like a possibility that you could land, just not in the main city.
I don't think you can definitively say that
they would have noticed.
The question simply based on the fact that Americans were there.
Yeah, especially also by April 28th, like Berlin was the focus.
Yeah.
So like even if they were in Magdeburg, they probably weren't like doing a lot there. They were either pushing forward or it was just kind of like, if anything, it might have just been like a rest stop, honestly, on the way to Berlin.
Yeah. And the Nazis were pretty much in full retreat at that point, so there wasn't a lot of fighting going on in Magdeburg.
Exactly.
Because they had, once Americans broke through the front lines, it was pretty much a dead sprint to Berlin. Yeah. They covered about 100 kilometers in like 10 days.
Yeah, and that's fast for moving on foot in a war.
Yeah.
Fighting against like another foot army. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's kind of a lot there. That basically just the assertion that since Magdeburg was occupied, it isn't possible. Mm-hmm. To me, is kind of like a stringy claim. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where that ends right there. There was really nothing that came after that because other pilots said not possible and they just kind of dismissed it. Yeah. Which was like common theme throughout this one, where basically it was like someone would say this, one person would dismiss it for whatever reason, and then it was never like brought up again to be like a actual thing that could have happened.
Yeah. I was curious about the context for that trial because he was on trial for like his own war crimes. For war crimes. So why he brought that up in the testimony, I was very curious about.
I mean, my guess is he was probably either going to jail for life or being sentenced to death, and he was like, "Fuck it." By the way, along with all the other shitty things I did, I also took Hitler out of Berlin.
I do almost wonder if that was like a kind of like a if you don't kill me, I'll kind of like give you some more information about certain things.
Yeah, definitely could have been.
Maybe like, hey, Hitler's hiding out in this place. I'll tell you where if you don't.
Like a behind closed doors, like, hey, I have information about where Hitler is. If I testify it, will you not kill me? And then he did. Not that we know if it was a behind closed doors deal, but he did testify it in Warsaw. And then other pilots were like, nope, couldn't have happened. So, who knows? And also, this is maybe a long stretch, but maybe those pilots, if they knew about it, we're trying to protect...
No, shut up.
Like, trying to protect Hitler from being found. And we're like, nope, dude, that couldn't have happened, bro.
Nah, man.
I just, like, walk up, whisper the edge. No, hey, listen, dude, take my word for it. I'm a pilot. Couldn't have happened. Yeah. People were there.
Yeah, so we kind of know, like, kind of where some things start to fall apart, but I don't know. Do you have any ideas about, like, actual theories about where Hitler might have gone after his escape?
I mean, yeah, so we're about to get into that right now.
Okay.
There's not a ton. A lot of them point to one place,
right,
as the end destination, but we're gonna get into that at the moment. So yeah, some of the speculation of where Hitler went after his alleged death. So some suggest that Hitler and Braun did not actually commit suicide, but escaped to Argentina, which, as we kind of alluded to before, not a crazy assertion. If he was to escape, would be go to Argentina.
Yeah, there were a lot of Nazis that went there because, kind of like Spain, at the very least, they were sympathetic to the Nazis.
Yeah, they were sympathetic.
So there was a pretty significant number of Nazis who did escape to Argentina.
Yeah, a good amount.
That's a pretty established fact.
Yeah, that's not something people would argue with. That's a known thing.
Yeah.
So the fact that he would have also went to Argentina isn't like a crazy thought.
Right.
So the scenario of him escaping to Argentina goes a little bit like this. A number of U-boats took certain Nazis and Nazi loot to Argentina, where the Nazis were supported by future President Juan Perón. Perón and his wife Evita had been receiving money from the Nazis for a while at this point. So one of the reasons Argentina was a sympathizer is because the Germans were sending them money. I don't know what for, but they kind of like supported each other, I guess.
I almost wonder if that was kind of like a long-term insurance plan.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
it definitely could have been.
Hey, if we keep these guys on our side, maybe
we can go there.
Like a backup plan.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, and that would probably be something we would never be able to find about because it'd probably be in Nazi documents that were burned.
Yeah.
So who knows if it was like a long-standing plan for that? But either way, they got along essentially. So Hitler arrived in Argentina, first staying at Hacienda San Ramon, and then moving to a Bavarian-styled mansion at Inauco, which is a remote and barely accessible spot at the northwest end of Lake Nahuel Huapi.
I'm just enjoying watching you pronounce these.
Close to the Chilean border, basically. It's
okay.
Supposed to be remote and barely accessible. It's close to the Chilean border.
I saw a picture of the house. It was actually kind of pretty, but it was like up in the mountains. And
yeah, it said it was a Bavarian-styled mansion.
Didn't look
Of course it was Bavarian-styled.
Well, yeah.
Had to find a Bavarian style, man.
Can you imagine house shopping with Mr. and Mrs. Hitler?
Dude, literally, he's like, they're like, you can go anywhere. And he's like, do you guys have anything German?
Welcome to Argentina and Buenos Aires. We have some lovely cottages. Do you have anything German?
That doesn't look very German.
This is Argentina, but do you have anything German?
And they're like, I guess we gotta give him the mansion, guys.
Okay.
Fuck.
Damn, I was saving that one.
Yeah. And then sometime in 1954, Braun left Hitler and moved to Niquin.
What?
With their daughter Ursula, and then supposedly Hitler died in February in 1962.
You mean Hitler wasn't a stand-up husband?
Or father.
Wow. Color me shocked.
Shocked.
Yeah.
That's the word I would use.
Thoroughly surprised.
Yep. Not absolutely on brand.
No,
definitely not on
at
brand.
All. Definitely not.
So in 2014...
I'm actually surprised they made it that long.
Oh, same. I mean...
9 years?
Theoretically, yeah. I mean, I know it wasn't Germany anymore, but like Hitler not being the best guy might have like had a way to keep her there, like kind of almost not letting her go. He strikes me as that type of person.
Yeah.
Just shitty all around.
Yep. You know what? Go you, Ava.
So in 2014, Grey Wolf, a controversial docudrama film based on the book of the same name, was produced. This book and movie essentially go over the same exact thing about Hitler escaping to Argentina with all the same details. So that was like...
Okay.
That book was a lot of those details. There's many like conspiracies that are like, he goes to Argentina. Maybe some of the details are a little bit different, but like that's like one of the more detailed ones I could find where they're like, he went to this town, this mansion, like...
It did have a lot of specific names.
Yeah, which is a little bit more than a lot of the things that were just like, he went to Argentina, no one really knows where he is.
Yeah.
So yeah, this like film was the same thing as the Argentina theory that we just talked about, but the film concluded with an extensive list of people who claimed to have seen Hitler in Argentina, which was a lot. In the book Grey Wolf, so the film was based on the book, the authors, Dunstan and Williams were their last names, state that having looted most of the wealth of the occupied countries, Hitler was one of the richest men in the world and would have had plenty of funding for an escape.
That is a good point.
It's fair.
The Nazis stole so much
shit. It's not something I had really thought about until we got to this point in our research. That they looted every country that they were occupying and just took it back to Berlin.
Yep.
So he would have been very rich.
Oh yeah.
The others
and also the submarines were loaded up with loot too.
Yeah,
He didn't leave much.
They took
behind.
loot to Argentina. Yeah. Then the authors also added that Martin Bormann, who was Hitler's secretary, who died in Berlin in 1945, was in control of these funds and of Hitler's alleged escape plans. I don't really know if that adds anything. I guess that would be a reason it never got out, because the person who planned it died.
And was also a Nazi.
Also a Nazi, that's definitely true. But that doesn't add a whole lot to the theory itself, but it's just kind of, it's something that they said.
Okay. Something to think about.
Yeah.
Something to chew on.
So moving on to a History Channel series called Hunting Hitler. Investigators claim to have found previously classified documents and to have interviewed witnesses indicating that Hitler escaped from Germany and traveled to South America by U-boat, where he and other Nazis allegedly plotted a Fourth Reich.
That is so on brand.
Oh my god, yeah. Never happened, obviously.
I mean, bonus points for, like, perseverance, though.
They couldn't just escape and like be happy with it. They had to try to do it again.
They couldn't just escape with billions of dollars in loot.
Yeah.
And just be happy.
Just be happy with all the people they had already killed.
You know what? Hey, sometimes money can't buy happiness.
I don't know. The whole Nazi like leadership, all of them, just kind of felt like they were compensating a little bit.
I can't disagree with you.
Like a little bit.
I have zero rebuttal for that statement.
They all got rich. Like, they didn't need to kill all those people. They didn't need to do all the stuff they did. They were running a country, and running a country is a pretty lucrative business.
A business.
You make money from it.
You do.
So, yeah. They were compensating just a tiny bit.
Okay.
Moving on to a guy named Philip Citrin. So, he had some wild claims. One wild claim, really. So, a declassified CIA document, which was dated October 3rd, 1955, highlights claims made by a self-proclaimed former German SS trooper named Philip Citrin. Citrin claimed that Hitler was still alive and that he, quote, left Colombia for Argentina around January 1955.
So, this is also a Nazi soldier, an SS trooper.
An SS trooper who had escaped.
Okay.
Yeah. Or that's what he said. That's kind of hard to confirm because, again, Nazi documents, a lot of them were like burned or not released.
Right.
But yeah, he essentially told someone that he was an SS, like a former SS trooper, and then that Hitler left Colombia for Argentina around January 1955.
Okay.
Which was kind of muddles the time frame of Eva Braun leaving him in Argentina, but that's not really the main point here.
Right.
The main point is that Hitler escaped and didn't die. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Eva left him at one point or another because she should have.
So did he have like any proof or anything to back it up?
So enclosed with the document was a photograph of Citrin and a person he claimed to be Hitler. The back of the photo had writing that said Adolf Schuttelmeyer and the year 1954. So this photo, we're actually going to put this photo on our Instagram. It looks like him.
It does.
It looks like him.
Yeah, you can't deny that.
You can't deny it. I love the fact that it looks like him too, because he was just too proud to shave his stupid ass mustache.
Fucking mustache.
His mustache looked like shit.
It was oh my
Also,
god.
extremely identifiable thing to have.
Yeah.
It is not a common mustache.
I think he's maybe the only person I can ever think of that would sport that.
Yeah, I mean,
For obvious reasons.
I'm sure
but-
other people have done it. Definitely, probably not since then.
Yeah.
It's for sure less common. Because why? That is literally the one factor that if anyone has it, you're like, that kind of looks like a Hitler stash.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the photo, it honestly does kind of look like him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to post that. That'll be like kind of what we did last time. That'll be like the announcement post for this episode.
Yeah.
It'll have that picture. Because, you know, it's podcast, we can't show you pictures. But, yeah, so he showed them that photograph, this former SS trooper did. The report also states that both the contact who reported the conversation with Citrin and the CIA station itself was not, quote, in a position to give an intelligent evaluation of the information. And superiors of the CIA station chief told the chief that, quote, enormous efforts could be expended on this matter with remote possibilities of establishing anything concrete, end quote, and then the investigation was dropped.
That's like something I would tell my group if I was too hungover to do homework.
Yeah, so they didn't really do anything.
That's
Which is kind of funny.
not in a position to give an intelligent evaluation of the information. What sticks out to me there is the fact that the CIA, normally even an agency that is so cut and dry about everything, normally their go-to is just deny everything. But this one, they were just like, we're not going to weigh in.
They kind of said, we don't really feel like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to recap on this, a former SS trooper came with a picture of him and a person that looked a lot like Hitler.
And he was claiming to be Hitler.
Said, yo, he's in Argentina. And the CIA was like, nah. Cool, dude. Like, whatever. And this wasn't in, like, 2010. This was in 1955.
1954. No, yeah, 55.
55,
The picture
yeah.
was 54.
So it was 10 years later. Stuff was still pretty fresh.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of wild to me. Especially that they said the whole CIA station was not in a position to give an intelligent evaluation. So basically that means, like, they probably just didn't take it seriously enough.
Yeah.
My guess would be they didn't, like, collect enough information from the person.
Yeah.
Because the way it sounds is that he told this to, like, one person, and the dude took it back and was like, yo, look at what just he told to me. He probably took it as a joke. So that's kind of probably the official way of saying we thought he was fucking around.
Yeah, that could be. That could definitely
But
be.
again, the picture looks like Hitler.
It does.
So that's kind of like... The main theory is that he escaped Argentina, so that was just like a few things that kind of like, if you want to say backed it up. That whole theory, the movie, the book. Not that movies are proof of anything, but the book came first.
Yeah.
And it had some pretty detailed stuff in it. And then this also with the photograph of, the guy said he was a former German SS trooper. Like,
Yeah.
that's like the main stuff, is escaping to Argentina, essentially.
Yeah. I do want to bring up like a couple other ones that we stumbled across, though, when we were doing research. There was one theory that actually kind of piggybacked on the U-boat theory and said that along the way to Argentina, they just took a little quick shortcut and dropped Hitler off at a secret Nazi ice base.
Yeah. And was that in Antarctica, right?
It was in Antarctica.
An ice base.
Not an Antarctic base, not a snow base, an ice base.
Literally, like, imagine the snow forts built as a child, if you're from somewhere that gets snow.
Hitler's just chilling in an
just
igloo somewhere.
Big-ass snow fort.
Yeah.
Just huge.
That's how I imagine that.
If you call it an ice base, I don't think it's a base somewhere cold.
No.
It means it's a base made of ice.
It can be a fun time.
No, that sounds like some like G.I. Joe type shit.
Yeah.
I think didn't they have like a base?
I think there was.
I think there's like a
actually an Arctic
scene.
base, yeah.
I don't think it's an ice base, but it's like a base in Antarctica or somewhere really cold.
Maybe the Arctic.
Yeah.
Goes under ice or something.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so I mean that doesn't really have a lot of water to stand on.
No,
but
there's really no like backup to that. It's just kind of like a funny thing that was brought up.
My absolute favorite though is the fact that the Nazis beat us to the moon and Hitler is now hiding on a moon base.
Yep. Nazi moon base confirmed.
Yep.
Hitler's there.
So while the Americans and the Soviets were funneling millions and millions of dollars into the moon program, Hitler was just chilling on a lawn chair, sipping beers, watching us.
That's why so much of the footage from when we landed there is we don't have that much.
Oh.
We found Hitler, and he was just there, sipping a beer, probably.
It's like waiting for you guys.
Yeah, some PBR.
Yeah. Oh,
seems like something Hitler would drink.
Yeah, he would drink PBR
because that's an import to him.
It's fancy.
It's fancy.
You can get 50 of them for like $12 here.
Yeah,
but he like pours it into a nice glass, puts like serves it around with all of his Nazi officers.
Yeah. No offense to PBR, this is a good thing for you. I mean, someone thought your beer was fancy. Yeah, I love the moon base.
Yeah,
I love the idea of the moon base.
There is absolutely no evidence for that other than people just saying, you know what, maybe he's on the moon. It is absolutely
someone drunk in a bar one night was like, I think Hitler went to the moon. And then one person wrote like a blog about it online or something like that.
A bunch of the headlines we were reading, they would literally start off and say, some thoughts about where Hitler is. And no, it's not a moon base.
I mean, but it could be.
It could be.
I like the idea of a moon base.
I do too. I mean, actually, the Nazis had some A1 rockets.
I mean, didn't they kind of play a decent part in us getting to the moon?
Oh, our entire Apollo program was German scientists.
So, they might have.
They were good at making
That'd
rockets.
be an absolutely nuts... If that, like, came out as true, which obviously it's not, that would be a mindfuck.
Oh my god.
If they're like, yeah, no, we actually went to the moon, like, a few times during World War II. The whole war was just a front for them to, like, escape as a country to the moon.
They were just prototyping rocket technology with all their bombs.
Yeah, true. I just think it's like funny. They were like, you know what, we're not going to be able to, because their whole like thing was they wanted to create the, Aryan race and rule the world. If they eventually, like, a couple years in the war, they're like, it's not possible. Let's just go to the moon. We'll take everybody in Germany that is Aryan and dip to the moon.
Yeah.
We'll start a new thing there. So they made a base, and that's where Hitler went, which is funny because he doesn't have blonde hair, nor does he have blue eyes.
They left him here. Everyone else went to the moon.
That is my biggest... Not my biggest beef with Hitler. That is a beef I have with Hitler.
Tread lightly.
Is that his race that he wanted to create wasn't even what he looked like.
Wasn't he also Jewish?
I think his family was Jewish.
I want to say his mom was.
Yeah,
that might be incorrect, but
there's definitely like I've read for sure that like somewhere in his ancestrage like recently was Jewish. Also, yeah, it's kind of funny.
Man, fuck that guy.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it was just because he got rejected from art school. I don't think he had any other backup besides that.
This is what happens when you don't get into Juilliard.
The person that rejected him was probably like not blonde hair or blue eyed. Was he Jewish? I don't know. That'd be kind of like a coincidence though if he was.
Yeah.
Because then you could really just say that was what made him do it. That'd be insane. But he was nuts though.
Okay.
Hitler was nuts.
So, all right, thoughts on this one?
I mean, honestly, I don't disregard the fact that he could have escaped Argentina just because so many people did. But also, like, him killing himself in a bunker when stuff got too much to handle is like not that surprising.
Yeah.
He was like pretty nuts by the end of his life, honestly. And the fact that his whole thing was falling apart.
Yeah. Wasn't he like on a shit ton of drugs too?
I think he was like on quite a few drugs.
I know the Germans loved meth.
They did. I think that was more they gave it to their soldiers though,
Okay.
because that was like go juice for them essentially.
Damn, that's methed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna laugh at that.
Please.
I'm not entertaining that joke.
I thought it was a great joke.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Okay, well, I
liked it.
I don't need your
Can I tell you why I liked it?
You can.
I did. I just
appreciate
kind of
that.
refused to laugh.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think he was on something. I'm sure he was on something, but I don't know what.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of on the same page because what I can't get over is like Berlin was thoroughly surrounded.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard for maybe like if he escaped Berlin, then that's a whole nother story. But I think that by itself is so far fetched.
But then that pilot also stayed left on the 28th.
Yeah,
Which is
true.
Which is
Just
different.
before they were actually surrounded.
Yeah, like that was like a day, like 2 days before they were like, they're gonna fuck us.
Yeah. So, but I don't know how much of the official story I subscribe to because there were so many like inconsistencies.
Yeah.
And
Especially because
suspicions.
it comes from the Soviets as well.
Yeah.
Who like at the time were very sketch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Basically what I mean is if like information was to get released that was like, hey, he actually did escape to Argentina, I wouldn't be that thrown off.
No.
Like, yes, him being dead is like probably like true. At least it's at least realistic. But if like tomorrow a newspaper was like, Hitler made it to Argentina, died in 1962, I'd be like, yeah, that's not that surprising though.
Yeah. So I think I'm kind of on the same page where I'm definitely skeptical, but I enjoy entertaining the thought.
And there's a lot of stuff, and like when we went over with like the Soviet soldiers, like their quotes and other things that really make you kind of question, like, because these are the people that found him.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you question, like, really what did happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the people that did allegedly find his body were like Soviet KGB agents. They were a KGB detachment.
Or yeah,
So
the
that's
SMERSH.
The SMERSH. Yeah, so that has like one side of things.
Yeah, and just like that soldier was like it was a bad double. The other one that said like he had escaped. Stalin saying he had escaped. Like,
Yeah.
not that Stalin was a stand-up guy.
Yeah, I can't say he was.
So I mean, I guess if we're saying the Nazi eyewitnesses weren't reliable, Stalin maybe not also super reliable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I mean, a lot of times foot soldiers in those scenarios, a little bit more reliable.
Yeah.
Like the guy was like, it was a bad double. You could probably be like, at least in his mind, it was a bad double.
Oh yeah.
So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I enjoy entertaining the thought though. So I think that's all we had about this one. But thanks for getting this far, and we'd love for you guys to hit us up on Instagram. Our link is in there for Spotify and iTunes or Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcast, yeah.
Definitely go follow the Instagram. We'll post the picture that we were talking about earlier, along with the post saying that this episode is out.
Yeah, and probably explain the picture a little bit just so like people see it and be like, okay.
Yeah.
And we just post the picture and like new
for
episode. They're
context.
like, what is this?
Yeah.
The Instagram is the.rabbitholepod if you don't already follow it or haven't checked it out.
Yeah. And if there's a specific topic you want us to talk about next time, DM us. And
Yeah, like we
we'll
said last
definitely
time,
look at-
just if you want to DM us, just DM us.
ladies, our DMs are open.
Like any thoughts on the podcast? If you have suggestions and you don't know us personally, you have our numbers. Like hit up the podcast Instagram and let us know.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, we'll take feedback too.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's one of my suggestions. It's more like feedback because again, episode 2, so we are not professionals. We did try to we'll have to see, but I know there was a little bit of like bumping noises in the first episode.
Yeah, I think we got it.
We tried to solve that issue, so let's hope that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to subscribe on whatever platform you prefer to listen to, share it, tell your friends if you have any friends that you think would enjoy this type of content. Or, parents or whatever. I don't know. Some people got cool parents.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Oh, not me.
No.
But I mean, my mom might not hate it, but she also might. Your mom's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is her vibe, though.
I think she would listen to it and then think it's just so stupid.
But she'd definitely tell us she liked it.
Oh, for sure.
Because
She
she's
would
such
not
a
be
nice
honest.
person.
Yeah.
Your dad would be brutally honest. It'd be hilarious.
He wouldn't even listen to it. He'd listen to like the intro and then just be like, "This is y'all
guys
cuss too much."
Honestly, you guys suck. And maybe you should just get good.
Yeah. So I think we'll leave it at that. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe, or whatever every YouTuber says.
Yeah. And you can't comment. I don't
On
even
the,
know if you
on the post you can. On
Oh,
Instagram.
true. Can
Yeah.
you like specific episodes on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts?
I know you can leave reviews.
You can leave reviews. Okay, so I'm gonna say this right now. We have 2 reviews on Apple Podcasts. They're both 5 stars. If it was you, text me because I'm curious. Because they weren't like reviews, like no one typed anything out, but it just says we have 2 5-star reviews, and I'm just curious to know who it was.
Hey, and keep doing you.
Yeah, like much appreciated. Very much like a big thank you.
Yeah, if you like the podcast, give us 5 stars, and if not, stay off the internet.
Yeah, no, we just want to know. Also, we've had some we looked at like regions of demographics or whatever, because we have it'll show us what state.
Oh yeah, we can tell
and how many people.
Yeah, some of the statistics.
Yeah, we're a little bit it's dope that other people have listened to it, but we had some numbers where we were like, who is listening to our podcast that we don't know?
Yeah, we had one in Australia. Shout out
We had
to
one in
them.
Australia. We had 9 in California, but by our math, only 4 people would have listened to it.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
But I mean, I'm happy about it.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely wanted to get out there, but I didn't expect the first episode to really get any farther than the friends that follow the page or that we sent it to.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, if you're listening and you don't know us, shout out. If you're listening and you do know us, also shout out.
Also shout out.
So shout out to everybody listening. All right, yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up there.
Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next episode on The Rabbit Hole.